Welcome back to the channel, basketball fans, to what might easily be the most critical, the most heavily debated, and undeniably the most monumental development in the modern era of Philippine basketball. We are standing on the precipice of an absolute revolution, a seismic shift in how Gilas Pilipinas approaches the international game, and it all revolves around a concept that, for decades, seemed like an impossible dream for our proud, basketball-crazed nation. Absolute, undeniable, game-changing size. You have read the explosive headlines circulating across every major sports network and social media platform over the last few days. You have seen the teasers, the passionate debates on forums, and you know exactly why we are gathered here today for this comprehensive broadcast. The battle cry has been loudly and definitively sounded across the archipelago. Fight the fight. The monster under the two towers of Gilas Pilipinas. Kai Sotto versus Quinton Milora-Brown, affectionately known to all of us as QMB. This is not just your standard run-of-the-mill daily news update. This is an exhaustive, incredibly detailed, documentary-style deep dive into the present reality and the boundless future of our national team's frontcourt. For generations, the Philippine basketball narrative has been one built almost entirely on heart, on unyielding spirit, on the concept of puso against insurmountable, towering odds. We were always the gritty underdogs, the quick and agile guards who had to rely on blistering outside shooting, full-court pressure, and relentless, exhausting hustle just to compete with, let alone overcome, towering opponents from Europe, from the Americas, and from our fierce rivals right here in the Asia-Pacific region. But the narrative is definitively changing right before our eyes. The fundamental landscape of Asian basketball is shifting beneath our feet, and for the first time in our storied, emotional history on the hardwood, we are not just looking up at the opposing giants. We are finally bringing our own absolute giants to the battlefield. And not just one solitary big man shouldering the entire burden of the nation, but two towering figures who represent the beautiful culmination of years of meticulous grassroots development, expansive international scouting, and a desperate, agonizing national yearning for legitimate rim protection and modern interior dominance. We must address the immediate pressing news that has sent massive shockwaves through the passionate Filipino basketball community heading into this crucial February 2026 window of the FIBA Basketball World Cup Asian qualifiers. Just days ago, the entire nation held its collective breath as alarming reports surfaced suggesting that both our 7'3" prodigy, Kai Sotto, and our 6'10" defensive anchor, Quinton Milora-Brown, might actually be unavailable for the highly anticipated home games against the absolute heavyweights of Oceania, the physical, fundamentally sound tall blacks of New Zealand and the world-class elite boomers of Australia. The anxiety was incredibly palpable. Rumors aggressively swirled about strict club commitments in the Japan B League, with fingers pointing at Kai's team, the Kashigaya Alphas, and QMB's new squad, Chiba. There were intense whispers about management teams deliberately holding players back in hopes of securing short-term, elusive NBA contracts. There were deep concerns about the grueling physical toll of international travel, the frustratingly complex politics of overseas leagues, and the lingering, terrifying specter of injuries, particularly Kai Sotto's recent ankle sprain and his long road back from a previous ACL concern. The national discourse turned dark, fearing that our legendary but aging warrior, June Mar Fajardo, would be left utterly alone to hold the fort against a relentless barrage of 7-footers from down under. But then, the storm clouds broke, and the glorious truth emerged. In a dramatic turn of events, it was revealed that the clubs in Japan were not the ones standing in the way. They had, in fact, given the green light. Through the incredibly patriotic intervention of QMB's father, Brian Brown, who personally bypassed management hurdles to declare his son's absolute commitment to the flag, and through the persistent efforts of the Samahang Basketballing Pilipinas, the crisis was averted. The narrative instantly violently shifted from one of impending despair to one of triumphant, roaring anticipation. The monsters are here. The two towers are officially assembling at the PhilSports Arena or the Mall of Asia Arena, wherever the battlefield is set. And the fight is officially on. This brings us to the absolute core of today's massive discussion. Kai Sotto versus QMB. Why are we framing this as a battle? Why are we comparing them in this intense, dramatic light? Because, basketball fans, they represent two distinctly different philosophies, two vastly different developmental paths, and perhaps, a beautiful internal battle for the ultimate soul and identity of the Gilas Pilipinas frontcourt. Kai Sotto is the undeniable unicorn, the highly touted prodigy with a scary modern skill set that perfectly aligns with 21st century positionless basketball. He is the offensive focal point, the towering presence with a silky smooth shooting touch. Quinton Milora-Brown, on the other hand, is the ultimate glue guy, the selfless, gritty, blue-collar worker who honed his craft in the tough U.S. collegiate system and with the up-fighting Maroons, a player whose immense value is often found in the crucial, invisible work that doesn't always show up on the traditional stat sheet but directly translates to massive victories. Are they fiercely competing for limited minutes in Coach Tim Cone's rotation? Are they going to war in practice for the coveted starting center position? Or are they entirely meant to perfectly coexist, to be brilliantly deployed side by side to form a terrifying, impenetrable twin-tower combination that will make teams like New Zealand and Australia seriously think twice before daring to attack the painted area? This internal dynamic, this beautiful friction between two elite talents pushing each other to absolute greatness, is exactly what the fight mantra is all about. It is about challenging the status quo, fighting through the physical and mental hurdles, and elevating Philippine basketball to heights we have never, ever reached before. We are about to unpack every single layer of this monumental development. We will dissect their individual games, their undeniable impact on the team's defensive schemes, their offensive synergy with our dynamic guards like Dwight Ramos and Chris Newsom, and what their combined presence means for the ultimate legacy of our national basketball program. Buckle up, because this is the defining moment for the future of Gilas Pilipinas. We transition now into the main body of our analysis, the deep dive into the architecture of this brand new Gilas Pilipinas frontcourt. To truly understand the magnitude of having both Kai Sotto and Quinton Milora-Brown available and battling it out on the same roster, we must first deeply analyze them as individual entities, dissecting their unique basketball DNA, their developmental journeys, and exactly what they bring to the hardwood under the masterful, incredibly demanding system of Coach Tim Cone. Let us begin with Kai Sotto, a name that has been etched into the consciousness of every Filipino basketball fan since he was dominating the high school ranks as a towering, lanky teenager for the 8 Neo Blue Eaglets. Kai's journey has been nothing short of a massive, heavily scrutinized national soap opera. We have followed his every move, from his ambitious, groundbreaking departure to the United States to train at the Skills Factory, to the highly publicized but ultimately unrealized stint with the NBA G League Ignite, to his vital professional seasoning in the fiercely competitive Australian NBL with the Adelaide 36ers, and now to his current tenure in the highly technical Japan B League with the Kashigaya Alphas. Everything about Kai Sotto screams absolute, unadulterated potential. Standing at a legitimate 7'3", he is not just tall. He possesses a basketball IQ and a delicate skill set that is exceedingly rare for a player of his immense stature. Kai brings a modern, perimeter-oriented flavor to the center position. He has the incredibly rare ability to confidently step out and hit the mid-range jumper, and increasingly, he is extending his range beyond the three-point arc. In Coach Tim Cone's vaunted triangle offense, or the modern variations of it that Gilas employs, a big man who can operate effectively out of the high post, read the intricate off-ball movement of his teammates, and deliver crisp, accurate passes is absolutely invaluable. Kai's sheer length alters an uncountable number of shots, forcing driving guards to incredibly difficult angles, effectively acting as a massive psychological deterrent in the paint. However, the journey has not been without its significant hurdles. The monster label comes with immense expectations, and Kai has had to constantly battle questions regarding his lower body strength, his physical endurance against wider, heavier centers, and a worrying string of recent injuries, including an ACL tear that devastated the nation in early 2025 and a recent ankle sprain that threatened his participation in this very window. The fight for Kai Sotto is not just against the opposing centers from New Zealand and Australia. It is an incredibly profound internal fight to definitively prove that his body can withstand the brutal, unforgiving rigors of top-tier international basketball, and to show that he can dominate a game not just with flashes of brilliance, but with relentless, sustained, four-quarter consistency. He is fighting the massive, suffocating weight of being the chosen one, the player burdened with the eternal hope of becoming the first homegrown Filipino in the NBA. Contrasting this beautiful, high-ceiling modern game is the arrival of Quinton Milora-Brown, or QMB. If Kai Sotto is the spectacular, flashy sports car of the frontcourt, Quinton Milora-Brown is the incredibly reliable, heavy-duty armored tank. QMB's path to the national team was decidedly different, far less hyped in his early years but no less arduous. Honing his skills in the highly structured, defensively demanding environment of US NCAA Division I basketball before making a massive splash locally with the up-fighting Maroons in the UAAP, Milora-Brown represents a fundamental shift in how we evaluate big men. At 6'10", he may give up a few inches to Kai, but what he lacks in absolute towering height, he more than makes up for with sheer, unadulterated strength, spectacular positioning, and a ravenous, almost primal appetite for rebounding. Tim Cone himself has previously described QMB as exactly what the doctor ordered for Gilas Pilipinas.
Why?
Because international basketball, especially at the highest levels of FIBA competition, is often won and lost in the muddy, unglamorous trenches of the painted area. QMB brings a brand of selfless, bruising basketball that empowers everyone else on the floor. He is the player who will willingly sacrifice his body to set a bone-crushing screen that frees up Dwight Ramos or Scotty Thompson for an open look. He is the player who will viciously box out a much heavier opponent, allowing a guard to swoop in and grab the defensive rebound to ignite the fast break. While he might not possess the silky smooth jump hook or the deep perimeter bag of Kai Sotto, his offensive game is built on high percentage, incredibly efficient opportunities, putbacks, vicious offensive rebounds, and hard rolls to the rim. In a team already packed with perimeter scorers and ball-dominant guards, a low-usage, incredibly high-efficiency big man like QMB is not just a luxury. He is an absolute, non-negotiable necessity. Now, let us intensely analyze the Kai Sotto versus QMB dynamic. The word versus in our title does not necessarily imply a bitter locker room rivalry. Rather, it highlights a fascinating, beautiful competition for tactical supremacy and situational dominance. When Coach Tim Cone looks down his bench, he now possesses two vastly different weapons, two massive chess pieces that can be deployed depending on the specific flow of the game and the unique challenges presented by the opponent. Against a team like the Australian Boomers, who traditionally deploy incredibly mobile, physical, and highly skilled big men, who do you start? Do you start Kai Sotto to match their length and try to pull their rim protectors out to the perimeter with his shooting? Or do you start the bruising QMB to establish a physical tone early, to ensure that we are not bullied on the offensive and defensive glass from the opening tip? This is the beautiful headache that Philippine basketball has desperately wanted for decades. We are no longer entirely dependent on naturalized players like Justin Brownlee to play out of position against much bigger guys, nor are we solely relying on the broad, heroic shoulders of the legendary Junmar Fajardo, who, despite his 9 PBA MVPs, cannot play 40 minutes of grueling international basketball at this stage in his illustrious career. Fajardo's role in this dynamic is actually crucial. He serves as the ultimate mentor, the massive bridge between the old guard of Philippine basketball and this towering new generation. Imagine the invaluable knowledge being passed down in practice, the footwork clinics, the lessons in using leverage and lower body strength that Fajardo imparts to both Kai and QMB. Let us delve deeper into the specific, tactical implications of having these two monsters under the towers. In a scenario where Gilas is struggling offensively, where the three-point shots from Kevin Kiambao or CJ Perez simply aren't falling, the traditional Philippine response was to panic, to force even more low-percentage shots, and eventually collapse. Now, the paradigm shifts entirely. Now, we can systematically dump the ball inside. We can run high-low actions between Kai Sotto at the elbow and QMB lurking in the dunker spot. The simple geometry of the basketball court changes when you have a 7'3" player and a 6'10" player occupying the paint. Opposing defenses are forced into agonizing decisions. If they aggressively help on a driving guard, they leave a massive target rolling to the rim for a lob. If they stay glued to the big men, our guards have clear, unobstructed driving lanes to the basket. Furthermore, the defensive potential is absolutely staggering. The term two towers historically evokes the legendary duo of Tim Duncan and David Robinson, or Ralph Sampson and Hakeem Olajuwon. While it is obviously unfair to place that immense historical burden on our young bigs, the fundamental concept remains exactly the same. Imagine a defensive possession where an opposing guard somehow manages to navigate past the initial, hounding perimeter defense of Chris Newsom. In the past, that was an automatic, guaranteed layup. Now, that guard immediately enters a terrifying forest of limbs. He has to elevate over the wide, imposing frame of Quinton Milora-Brown, and even if he manages to adjust his shot in mid-air, the impossibly long, swatting hand of Kai Sotto is waiting as the ultimate secondary rim protector. This allows our perimeter defenders to play with a level of hyper-aggressive confidence they have never truly enjoyed before. They can aggressively jump passing lanes, they can violently fight over screens, knowing with absolute certainty that there is a massive, impenetrable safety net waiting behind them. We must also talk about the psychological aspect, the massive mental shift this brings to the entire Gilas Pilipinas program. For years, the pre-game narrative against teams like New Zealand and Australia was always about managing the rebounding discrepancy or surviving their size. We entered the arena with an inherent, deeply ingrained inferiority complex regarding height. The presence of Sotto and Milora Brown entirely eradicates that complex. When our players walk onto the court during the warm-ups and look across the incredibly physical frames of the Boomers or the Tall Blacks, they no longer have to feel physically inadequate. We can look them directly in the eye. That psychological empowerment cannot possibly be overstated. It breeds a quiet, dangerous confidence. It changes the posture of the team. It transforms Gilas Pilipinas from a team hoping to pull off a miracle into a team genuinely expecting to execute a winning game plan based on equal, if not superior, physical tools. But make no mistake, the phrase, "fight the fight," is incredibly apt, because this transition will not be seamless, and it will not be perfectly easy. There will be deeply frustrating growing pains. There will be games where Kai Sotto struggles with the intense, unrelenting physicality, where he gets pushed off his preferred spots on the block, and where the unforgiving Filipino fanbase will immediately take to social media to heavily criticize his motor. There will be games where QMB picks up 3 quick, frustrating fouls trying to defend hyper-athletic, modern stretch fives, and the questions will loudly arise about his lateral quickness and his ability to defend seamlessly in space. They are both young. They are both still rapidly learning the incredibly complex, unforgiving nuances of the international game, where the spacing is tighter, the officiating is vastly different from the NBA or even the B League, and the margin for error is razor-thin. This is exactly why the internal competition is so vital to their mutual survival and growth. Every single day in practice at the Inspire Sports Academy or the Phil Sports Arena, when Tim Cohn blows the whistle and demands execution, Kai Sotto and Quinton Milora Brown are intensely forcing each other to be better. QMB is violently hitting Kai with hard, legal screens, forcing the young prodigy to dramatically improve his physical resistance and his core strength. In return, Kai is actively shooting over QMB, executing complex high-post passes, and forcing the defensive specialist to significantly improve his closeout speed and his ability to contest incredibly high release points. Iron sharpens iron. This fierce, uncompromising, yet ultimately brotherly battle under the basket is the exact crucible in which the future dominance of Philippine basketball is currently being forged. They are not merely fighting each other, they are collectively fighting the outdated, diminutive legacy of the past, fighting the intense, often toxic pressure of national expectations, and fighting to firmly establish a brand new, towering identity for the Filipino athlete on the global stage. As we draw this incredibly extensive, comprehensive analysis to a close, it is absolutely vital to take a step back and truly appreciate the unprecedented, historical significance of the moment we are currently witnessing in Philippine basketball. We have spent the last deeply analytical segment unpacking the individual brilliance, the fascinating contrasts, and the terrifying combined potential of Kai Sotto and Quinton Milora Brown. We have explored exactly how their massive presence fundamentally alters Coach Tim Cohn's strategic playbook, how it completely shifts the psychological dynamic of the entire Gilas Pilipinas roster, and how it directly addresses the glaring, historical weaknesses that have forever plagued our brave national teams in the past. The headline we started with, "Fight the Fight, the monster under the 2 towers of Gilas Pilipinas, Kai Sotto versus QMB," is so much more than just a catchy, dramatic phrase designed to generate views. It is a powerful, defining statement of intent. It is a brilliant reflection of a national program that has finally, unequivocally matured. We are no longer simply satisfied with putting up a valiant, heartbreaking effort against taller teams. We are now explicitly demanding victory, armed with the actual, undeniable physical tools to realistically achieve it. The internal battle between Sotto and Milora Brown is the very heartbeat of this new era. It is a beautiful, necessary friction. Whether they are fiercely competing for the starting spot or learning to seamlessly dominate side by side in a terrifying twin tower alignment, their combined presence guarantees that the paint will no longer be a place of immense vulnerability for the Philippines, but rather a fortress of absolute strength. As we look forward to the incredibly crucial, high-stakes battles against the New Zealand Tall Blacks and the Australian Boomers in this pivotal February window, the stakes could not possibly be higher. The entire nation will be watching, absolutely glued to their screens, analyzing every single rebound, every single altered shot, and every single display of dominance from our big men. There will inevitably be moments of intense frustration, and there will surely be moments of absolute, unbridled jubilation. But through it all, we must firmly remember that these 2 incredibly young men are currently carrying the massive, heavy hopes of over 100 million deeply passionate, deeply critical basketball fans on their broad shoulders. Therefore, my final resounding message to everyone watching this deep dive is a loud, unapologetic call to action. It is time for us to fully rally behind this magnificent evolution. Let us passionately celebrate the grit, the muscle, and the unyielding hustle of Quinton Milora Brown, the ultimate team player who chose to fight for our flag against all bureaucratic odds. Let us continue to fiercely support and patiently nurture the unique, world-class talent of Kai Sotto, as he bravely navigates the immense pressures of his journey and continues to refine his incredibly promising game. Let us trust in the masterful, proven vision of Coach Tim Cohn to brilliantly unlock their maximum, terrifying potential. The era of feeling physically outmatched is officially over. The monsters are finally awake, they are deeply hungry, and they are proudly wearing the blue, white, red, and yellow. Thank you so much for joining me on this exhaustive, incredibly detailed deep dive. Keep the passion burning, keep supporting our national team, and as always, continue to fight the fight. We will see you next time.